UFC Raleigh was last weekend and it was an amazing fight card. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card that intrigued me, giving you the fights I want to see made next between the winners and the losers of each and every fight that I found interesting on the card. Starting with making a big debut in fashion, Herbert Burns getting a big KO over Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr, I'm not going to talk too much about him. He can obviously take on a featherweight that's coming off a loss. Not really much to go on about. He's 0-1 in the UFC now, not off to the best of starts. Hopefully he can pick things back up. Herbert Burns needs to take on Sean Woodson at UFC 250. He wants to be on UFC 250. They're going to Brazil. Make the most of him. He's just established himself in vicious fashion in the UFC. Put him on the prelims against an entertaining fighter and style in Sean Woodson, another featherweight, coming off 1-0 in the UFC. Very equal positions in their career. Let's have them take on each other now. There can only be one, and have it happen in Brazil to make the most of Herbert Burns' name over there. Moving on, Brett Johns versus Tony Gravely. Great fight again with Brett Johns getting the submission in the third round. Not much to say about Tony Gravely. Maybe Tony Gravely can take on a guy like, I'm not sure. Someone help me out here. Maybe an Andre Sukumtar if they're still looking to give him fights. Maybe that's somewhere that he can go with his career. But for Brett Johns, I feel like a great fight to make. Brett Johns is floating around the 20 range of the bantamweight division. Montel Jackson has now just entered the late 20s of the rankings. Brett Johns versus Montel Jackson. Their timelines sync up. Their records kind of sync up in the UFC right now. Brett Johns has only lost to the best. Montel Jackson, of course, had a loss to Ricky Simone. They're both riding wins right now. I'd love to see that matchup. Brett Johns versus Montel Jackson. Let's start matching these guys up against each other. There's relevance because they last fought on the same card. They match their timelines again, as I said before. It'd be a perfect fight. Sarah McMahon versus Lena Landsberg. Moving on. Montel Jackson, Felipe Corrales. I just said. Montel Jackson. Brett Johns. Amazing fight. Make it fucking happen. Anytime, any place, anywhere. I'll watch that shit because it would be very entertaining for Felipe Corrales. Maybe you could do Felipe Corrales versus Tony Gravely. They both came off losses on the same card. Let's just do that. Yeah, fuck what I was talking about. Yeah, cut Andre Sukumtar. Fuck Andre Sukumtar. Don't give him a fight. Cut him from the UFC for good because he's retarded. Brett Johns, Montel Jackson face each other. Felipe Corrales versus Tony Gravely face each other. That's how we're going to do things. Nice and easy. Moving on. Justin Kish versus Lucy Pudilova. Moving on, Arnold Allen versus Nick Lentz. Arnold Allen should be rebooked to fight Josh Emmett. I feel like that's the one that makes sense. If Josh Emmett was okay to take it in the first place, I'm sure he'll be more okay to take the fight now that he knows that Arnold Allen's just broke his hand. Or not broke his hand. I think he fractured it minorly. So we're lucky. He's not going to be out for a long time. He's a very minor injury to his hand, I believe. No surgery required, which is good news. He can get back in there relatively soon. Josh Emmett, of course, coming off an injury as well. Let's rebook that fight. It was the fight to make in the first place. Let's try and get it happening again because Arnold Allen versus Josh Emmett, especially now that Arnold Allen's 7-0 instead of 6-0, the interest has only increased. I'd love to watch that fight. And now with Josh Emmett having an even longer layoff, it becomes more interesting. And it becomes a bit closer because of the activity of Arnold Allen. Nick Lentz at featherweight, it's tough, man. It's really tough at featherweight to find wins if you're just joining the division and now you're coming off a loss straight away. It's not the best position to be in, I'll be honest with you guys. It really isn't for Nick Lentz. I mean, he has problems with his eye, so obviously he's going to have to take some time off there. But maybe we could see a Nick Lentz versus Kron Gracie. That would be quite fun. Maybe we could see a Nick Lentz versus someone like Rick Glenn. I don't actually like that name whatsoever. Maybe a Nick Lentz versus Julio Arce. Coming off a loss as well. A big name. Young contender in the division. I'm looking forward to it. That would be a great fight to make. Moving on. Let's talk about Bevon Lewis versus Daquan Townsend. I really don't care where this goes, to be honest with you, because Bevon Lewis really let me down. But I'm going to give him a name that he can fight next, I guess. Gerald Mearshart, guys like this. Maybe Deron Wynn would be a good fight to make next. I'm not too high on Bevon Lewis right now. It was a good win, don't get me wrong, but just wasn't the most impressive of performances. And for Daquan Townsend, 0-2 in your UFC career. Since you've joined, maybe it's not cut out for you. Maybe you're just not cut out for this business, you know. Main card time. Jamahal Hill should take on Gamzatov at light heavyweight. He's 14-0, 1-0 in the UFC, much like Jamahal Hill, also undefeated, 1-0 in the UFC. Make that fight happen. I'd love to see it. Sounds amazing to me. Moving on. For Darko Stojic, Bellator, Hannah Cyphers. Probably not going to get a fight, who knows? We'll see what happens with her. But for Angela Hill, women's strawweight, I mean, there's fights with Michelle Waterson, perhaps. She's not in the rankings yet, so I don't know how nice they're going to be with her. I know Claudia Gadelha just lost Alexa Grasso as an opponent, so maybe they could match them two up together. Angela Hill, Claudia Gadelha. I'd be down to watch that fight with Angela Hill coming off a big finish. I enjoy it. Hill versus Gadelha. Make it happen. Jordan Espinoza versus Alex Perez. I don't fucking know. Alex Perez should take on one of this. Jose Formiga, which is a dangerous fight, so maybe you shouldn't do that. A better fight to make would be Alex Perez versus Alejandro Pantoja. There we go. Alejandro Pantoja coming off a big KO win over Matt Schnell in the flyweight division. Alex Perez coming off a big submission win in the first round against Jordan Espinoza. Make that fight happen. And for Jordan Espinoza, maybe you can do him versus Matt Schnell. There you go. 2 losers, 2 winners. That's how easy this is. Moving on. Rafael Dos Anjos and Michael Chiesa. Dos Anjos should take on, if he wants to keep fighting, and he wants to stay at welterweight, a Pettis rematch at 170 doesn't sound too bad to me. And it's a very winnable fight for him as well. And Pettis is still ranked at welterweight, I think at number 11 or 12. Dos Anjos versus Pettis at welterweight. That's a great fight. And if he doesn't want to take on Pettis, another rematch that would interest me would be Dos Anjos versus Lawler. Maybe that would be a better fight to make, seeing as you could build some kind of narrative of the fact that Lawler was injured in their first fight. And again, with this fight with Rafael Dos Anjos, I want to see it made on the main event or the main card of UFC 250 in Brazil. We've got to make the most of these Brazilian names while we've got them in the rankings, because let's face it, Brazilians at the top of the game are dropping like flies right now, and they have been for the past 10 years. We're slowly running out of Brazilians, okay? In the male divisions especially. Rafael Dos Anjos needs to be on that card. I don't remember the last time he fought in Brazil, even though he is Brazilian. I don't remember him ever going to Brazil cards too often. Rafael Dos Anjos versus Robbie Lawler rematch, or versus Anthony Pettis rematch. Great fights to happen. Michael Chiesa is not going to get the Colby Covington fight. That's established because Colby Covington hasn't said a your mum joke on Twitter yet. And that would be the telltale sign. Chiesa calls out Covington. If Covington was in any way interested whatsoever, he'd have some kind of reply. He's not interested. Michael Chiesa obviously isn't a big enough name to be on his radar, which is understandable. Chiesa's now ranked number 7. Colby's number 2. I'm not sure he would even consider that matchup. I'm sure he's looking for bigger and better things, like maybe a Woodley fight if Woodley wins or loses against Leon Edwards. Maybe a Nate Diaz matchup for Colby Covington. But for Chiesa, if he doesn't get the Covington fight, him versus Wonderboy Thompson would be a great fight to make. They're both nice guys. They could go on the main card of a pay-per-view, maybe UFC 251 in June. This sounds amazing to me. UFC 251, Miocic DC3, Usman vs Masvidal in the co-main event because they're not heavyweights and heavyweights always get the main event. Michael Chiesa versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, also on the card, on the main card. It's that easy. That's a great fight to make. And the winner of because Michael Chiesa calling out number 2 in the world, a win over Dos Anjos doesn't mean that much anymore. I mean, we've seen him lose a lot now. Every time he loses, a win over him becomes less and less impressive. Okay? Because he's coming to that point in his career. So, Michael Chiesa versus Wonderboy Thompson, the winner of that fight will be then on a 2-fight win streak. Or Wonderboy will be on a 2-fight win streak. Chiesa will be on a 4-fight win streak. Then we can talk about maybe looking for title elimination bouts. Then we can talk about taking on the top 3 of the division. Because if not, then shut the fuck up. Chiesa versus Wonderboy is the next fight to make on the main card of UFC 251. Next up, Blaydes Dos Santos. Blaydes gets a big win in the second round. Blaydes should take on... And here's the thing, Blaydes is going to save his career here. Blaydes is going to have to make a big decision. Does he want to sit around and play diva? Doesn't sound like it. He said he'd been open for other matches. Or does Blaydes want to stay active in his young age and improve his contract? First of all, his payment, because every time you win, you get extra money in your next fight by, like, I believe at heavyweight, the multiplier is 5. So every time Curtis Blaydes wins, he gains 5,000 to show, gains 5,000 to win, so 10,000 overall if he wins. Do that against a winnable fight. A winnable fight would be Volkov. Dangerous, but winnable. Very winnable. So would Derrick Lewis if Derrick Lewis beats Ilir Latifi. Lewis versus Curtis Blaydes would be an amazing fight. And I feel like right now Curtis Blaydes needs to be the bigger man, realise the situation he's in with the heavyweight division, and just be like, you know what? I'm just going to make the most of being 28 years old in this old man's division of heavyweight. And I'm going to take on more opponents. And I'm going to get better. So that when my title shot does eventually come around, after I've beaten off every single contender, I'm going to be way better than I was last year. I want Curtis Blaydes to stay active. I'd like to maybe see him take on the winner of Derrick Lewis versus Ilir Latifi. Specifically, if it's Derrick Lewis, that would be a great fight to headline a fight night somewhere. Sign me up. Blaydes versus Lewis sounds like an amazing idea. They're both rocking the same schedule right now. Blaydes fought last weekend. Lewis is fighting next weekend. Similar time frames. Derrick Lewis, if he beats Latifi, which most likely he will take on Curtis Blaydes. And maybe Latifi can take on Blaydes as well if he wins. Who knows? It's the heavyweight division. You never fucking know what kind of Derrick Lewis is going to show up. Maybe Latifi can... it's MMA. You never know. Maybe Latifi wins and then we see Latifi versus Blaydes. Jesus fucking Christ. Hopefully not. I love the Black Beast too much. Derrick Lewis needs to stay on form. I need to see him fight for a title again, okay? It's not right what DC did to him. Dunking him on his ass like that. Embarrassing him. Derrick Lewis needs a vengeance, okay? So Curtis Blaydes, Derrick Lewis could be next. And if not, Curtis Blaydes, Volkov also sounds good. And for Dos Santos, heavyweight coming off a loss, Alistair Overeem. I know they fought before, but it would be a good fight to happen. To be honest with you, make the most out of two big names coming off losses. That sounds good to me. JDS versus Overeem is an amazing fight. Or JDS versus Blagojev rematch would also be a great fight to happen. Or JDS versus another heavyweight coming off a loss. Make your fucking pick. There's plenty of them, okay? Maybe just we give JDS Andrei Arlovski and just have some fun. JDS doesn't have to fight fucking murderers every single time he goes out there. He's about 40 years old. Can we calm down feeding JDS to the wolves every 10 fucking seconds? JDS can take on a guy like Andrei Arlovski, like Stefan Struve. Maybe we can give Struve a little bit of a shot. Who knows? Like, just someone coming off a loss, you know? Stop giving him killers. Let him have some fun with his career. JDS versus Arlovski sounds like an amazing fight to me. Main card of any pay-per-view. To be honest, maybe not Arlovski. That's a little bit low-hanging fruit. Maybe we do something like JDS versus... Who's coming off a loss? Justin Willis. Not Justin Willis. He went home, of course. Big Titty did. Let me look at the heavyweight division right now. I'll give you guys a little synopsis on what I think JDS should do next. We're looking at heavyweights coming off losses. Obviously, there's the Overeem fight that's possible. That might be the next one to make. Maybe we can do... I don't know. Maybe the Overeem fight's the one to make. I'll look forward to it. The first one was kind of stopped not the first one. The last one was kind of stopped abruptly as well because it was a weird stoppage, if you remember. Overeem tagged JDS. JDS was clearly hurt, but it was a little bit of a premature stoppage because JDS got right back up afterwards. So I wouldn't mind seeing that one ran back, to be honest with you. Two legends going at it once more. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Good freaking bye, you dweebs. See you later.